Welcome to what should be the last part in the windshield and skylight installation. I've got most of the pieces that were holding the windshield in place removed. I'm getting ready to take it off. I'm going to do a few minor adjustments to the windshield. I'm going to thin this out at the corners here. I was reviewing one of Derek Kenny's videos on his windshield install, and he had done that, and I was thinking that that might help the strip that's kind of popping out, and he ran into the same thing. He thinned this out a little bit and got it to sit back in a little nicer. So I'm going to do that on both sides. I need to make a slight adjustment to where this one screw is here. Windshield is kind of ended up in a slightly different position than I had initially made the clearance for, so I'll just open that up a little bit. And then between these two marks here, here and here, I want to chamfer a little bit and take away a little material along the backside edge of the windshield to let it kind of sit down a little more. There's a little bit of, I'd call it a high spot, I guess, between these points. I just want to let that kind of sit down a little more. And then, because what I'm going to do after I get all this in place, before I put the strip on, I'm going to put some black RTV in this joint here and seal this up. Then of course the strip will go on, but I just want to make sure that I get as nice of a tight fit across here as possible. And what else am I going to do? I'm going to take just a little bit more off the windshield from about here on down. I'm talking like, I'm going to taper it from like 0 to like a 1/16 of an inch here. Just a little bit. I needed to get just a little more clearance for my Z-strip. I mentioned in the last video, I'm going to put some foam tape underneath, right underneath here, to kind of help that situation. So a couple things I need to do, but I'm going to pull it off. Oh, and of course, I guess at this point, I'll remove all of the protective plastic masking on the inside. And then on the outside where there's going to be any contact with anything, and I've kind of marked all those points here. And then at that point, it'll go back on and I'll start doing some of the final things. So that's kind of the game plan for what I'm going to do in this episode. I'm going to pull off this protective masking. I've already got it on the outsides removed, around the perimeters where all the pieces cover it up. It's kind of a pain in the butt to get out or to take off. It's not sticky, like when you pull it off it doesn't leave a residue, but it really sticks to the plexiglass, and it's really pliable, so as you pull it, it just kind of stretches and breaks. So you end up doing it in these little sections like that, unless you get a good pull going like I'm kind of doing here, but even then it just breaks. But whatever, that's fine. At least it's not leaving a residue. Oh, there we go, look at this. Nice big piece. Nice big piece. All right. I always like doing work more than once, right? I've taken these screws out on these because I was sitting here realizing about this much of it's exposed. Windshield comes to here, and I don't want in any rain or anything, any water intruding and getting into the avionics. It forms a really tight seal here, but let's just say I don't want any chance of water getting in there if I can avoid it. The factory has you do like some foam tape here, and I did try that when I assembled this, but I didn't like it because when I would put the screws in, it would tighten down where the screws were and bump it up where they weren't, and it just kind of made this ripple. So I ended up taking it out. But then I was like, man, I really don't like having nothing there. So I'm coming in here, and I've already done it to this side. I lifted it up, and I did a bead of RTV down the front and there. So I'm kind of doing some work twice here. I knew I was going to have to do something here when I took the windshield off. It's never gonna go right exactly the first time. But I'll get some RTV in here. And also I'm painting the screw heads flat black. Just makes it look a lot nicer. So yeah, detail work. Oh, also saw that Derek Kenny painted these little tabs of his black. So I wanted to do that as well. I just used a little brush with some modeler's paint. Just the detail work that you got to do, because once this windshield's on, you don't get the opportunity easily to do some of this stuff. So looks like I'm going to spend the day doing a lot of this little fine detail work, which is fine. I don't mind it. Got all that work done. Got all my screws back in. My RTV sealant where I wanted it. These are all painted and dry. I like that look. It is a much nicer, more clean look. Having these little pieces of these silver tabs painted. I went in here and I put the foam tape right where that windshield was sitting, just to kind of help take up that gap. So I think at this point I'm ready to bring the windshield over and set it in place. All right, I got the windshield in place, and I'm gonna go ahead and put this center strip on. I put a little bend in it so it follows this curve naturally. And let's see, this was a little tricky last time, getting these holes lined up in these riv nuts. Did I get it the first time? Oh, look at that. Wow. Let's see, let me grab another screw here. Let's see if I get lucky all the way down. Got the windshield back on. It's a little tricky getting those screws to line up. The rib was wanting to go one way or the other. It'd be a lot easier if I had somebody inside guiding it while I was dropping the screw in, but I did get it. So this is all in place. I got my Z-strips in here so I can verify that I've got my distance where it's supposed to be that way. It's centered. It's basically where it needs to be. So I think the next step is I want to run a little bead of that black RTV silicone across this joint here, just to seal between the windshield and the boot cowl. And I'm going to want the RTV to cure in its position that it's going to want to be in. So I'm going to put this on. I put some packing tape and then some painter's tape over that, just in case the RTV gets a little sloppy. I don't want to glue the RTV to the strip. I should be able to pop it off and then peel the tape off if that happens. And I'm not going to put every screw in. I'll just go every maybe 2 or 3 holes and just lock that in place and let that cure. That should give me a pretty nice gap sealing right here. And this gets the polyurethane sealant. This is just more or less to try to seal up that gap before any of that strip goes in place. Well, I've got everything prepped and ready to put the RTV sealant in here. This is one of those scary moments, only because this is when the windshield installation kind of becomes permanent. Obviously, I'm not putting the strip on and gluing that on with the polyurethane yet, but I am kind of doing something that does make this pretty much this is where the windshield will be, and taking it off after this will not be fun. So I'm just double checking everything. Everything looks good. Because once I do this, you know me and my commitment issues, I have a hard time when it comes to something being, permanent. So, okay, well, let's get after it. Got it all siliconed up, got the strip in here holding it in place. I guess, maybe I'll throw a couple Glicos here. I guess we'll see what happens tomorrow when I take it off. Hopefully it kind of stays in position enough that then I can do the next step, which is glue this on. So I'm gonna be done for tonight. Done quite a bit on this today. And I'll come back tomorrow and we'll see what I have. Okay, the RTV is cured. I've pulled the strip off. While I had the strip on, I put some tape lines up so that when I go to apply my glue, my polyurethane, it's not going to, squish out onto areas I don't want it. I'll come back in with another layer to really widen this up to protect it. But this served the purpose I was looking for, and it did not stick to the strip. I had that cellophane tape on there, peeled that off, and it all just came off no problem. That gives me a good seal between the windshield and the boot cowl for two reasons. Water, I guess. I mean, the strip's going to be on here with the polyurethane, but a little extra protection there. But more so, I don't want the windshield vibrating or anything against the boot cowl over time. That could start to eat away at the aluminum or maybe cause potential for crack in the plexiglass or whatever. So now what I'm going to do is take some sandpaper and scuff this up, the plastic right here, for the polyurethane to stick. And then also there's a polyurethane Sikaflex primer that I'll have to apply to that as well so that the polyurethane will stick to the plexiglass. So I'll continue on sanding this right now, get this prepped, and start getting ready to glue the strip on. Honestly, this would have been easier for me to have done with the windshield off, but I didn't. It's the short answer. So it's going to just take me a little extra effort here. Not really a whole lot though. Got that all sanded up. I realized I need to put these on. I need to screw these in place before I proceed with gluing this strip on. I realized that as I was starting to sand down here. I'm like, wait a minute, my Z-strips have to get permanently attached, in my case with screws and nuts, because once the strip goes on, that kind of, getting this out isn't really as easy. So I do have them setting where I like them. What I need to do is really just, all the foam tapes or everything are inside the channel, like the manual shows. I just need to go in here or a composite piece just for abrasion resistance and also a little bit of a sealing effect. But these screws, I like these screws. These are stainless screws, 632 by 7/16, but they have a Torx T15 head. And I like that because there's less chance to strip these out. Even when I was temporarily installing this, I was just using the Phillips head screws. Every now and then you'd get one and the bit would kind of slip off of it and it would kind of dork up the head. Torx, that's not going to happen. It's going to give me a nice positive lock when I install those. All right, I've got a couple little beads there. Not a whole lot, I don't want to make a mess. Just enough that when that strip goes down, it's going to squish down, kind of ooze that out, and it should create a nice layer. I'm not going to manipulate those beads or anything or spread that out. I'm just going to let it be what it is. And then when that piece goes down, that should get me what I'm after. Got the strip screwed in place there. I've run these Cleco clamp style Clecos here to really suck this in. I'm gonna have to deal with this issue later. Still thinking I might put a rivet in there along with maybe some polyurethane, or I might even do a little epoxy here, some 2216 just at the ends. I want to try to avoid epoxy, but if I need to, I will. I'll reinvestigate that. Same thing over here, just a little bit of a... Once I get that tucked in there, the rest of the fit is pretty nice. I'm gonna go ahead and pull, I didn't get any oozing out anywhere up here. I'm gonna go ahead and pull this tape up. I'm gonna have to re-tape that anyway a little bit further out for when I create a fillet with the RTV. But for now, I'll go ahead and I don't need this tape here anymore. I'll go ahead and pull that out, and that'll actually kind of let me see what this looks like. Well, now I'm just gonna let everything cure up. I gotta tell you, for some reason, this gluing this strip down, out of this entire build so far, has given me the most anxiety, and I don't know why. It really shouldn't have. I mean, as I'm looking at it now, it's turned out fine. I don't have any issues that I think happened. I don't know, just for some reason. But I do like how it has turned out. It's nice and clean. I will come back in later, as I mentioned, and put these fillets in. I'm gonna take a look at a friend of mine here that builds carbon cubs. He's built like 4 of them in the last, or 5 of them in the last 4 years. And I'm gonna take a look at how he does his. I've looked at it before and talked to him about it. I just wanna have one more look. What he does is real nice, and the carbon cubs are very similar to the S-21 in this nature, where you've got the plexiglass windshield coming down and this composite strip coming across the boot cowl. And carbon Cub Crafters uses screws on theirs, they don't rivet, so I'm kind of following their lead on that too. But yeah, now we just sit here, let it cure up, and once I'll give it a full day to cure, and then you can see I've got it's kind of hard to see, but there's a little gap here. Probably that gap is about 3/32 of an inch. That's what'll get filled with the RTV along there and then along the front edge. Here's what I did. I drilled a hole in here, pretty much right in line with where these rivets are, and about a 1/2 inch down from the top of this, and used a clamping Cleco here, and it draws it right in. And I looked in here, I've got just enough room, you can't quite make it out, but I've got just enough room to get a needle nose with a lock nut in here and use one of my black screws here. So I'm gonna undo this and let it kind of come out so I can squeeze some glue in there, which brings me to a point. I'm wondering, I have 2 options. I can do the black RTV in here, a little fillet, and kind of squeeze some down in where there's a little bit of a gap in there. Or I can use the polyurethane. The fellow that I know that does the carbon cubs uses RTV, but I mean, this was glued with polyurethane. I don't know why I couldn't mask this off and squeeze polyurethane in there and kind of come with tape and everything, come in, make a nice fillet, peel the tape off, and then it's polyurethane. The upside to that is, with it being polyurethane, I believe the polyurethane is paintable, or at least more so than the silicone, which is not paintable. Okay, I've decided I'm gonna do the polyurethane, at least for this part. Mainly because I wanna have more of an adhesive type material than a sealant to try to help hold this springy part. So I'm gonna have to get some polyurethane in there. I got this all taped up. I've basically taken my masking tape right at the edge of the strip, and I've come up on the windshield, I don't know, a heavy 1/16. Just enough to leave enough for it to stick to the windshield. Squish down in that little gap wherever there is one. going to take this tape off now, and I hope it's not going to like pull the polyurethane in any funky way. It appears to be okay. I'm doing this while this polyurethane is still tacky. In fact, it's even more than tacky. I only applied it about 10 minutes ago because I want it to not stick. I want it to flow. All right, I got the top tape pulled off. It came off real nice. Now I'm just working on the tape here over the strip. And that's also coming off real nice. Nice. Nice, clean polyurethane line. Nice and even all the way around. I'm noticing the polyurethane is kind of settling in a couple areas where it was a little bit of a gap. I'm gonna let it all cure, and I may come in later, retape this off, hit those areas with another little bit. But so far, I like it, and I didn't have any issues with that. Nice and clean, nice straight line. Cool. The only thing will be left to do is this here. I'm gonna wait on that. I don't really need to do that yet. I wanna wait till I talk to my guy that's gonna paint the fuselage. I'm gonna send the I'm gonna get the airplane flying, and then I'm gonna fly it down to the paint shop for the fuselage. I'm not gonna paint the fuselage. That being said, I'm gonna wait and see what he recommends. I don't know if he's gonna need to come in here and respray any black or anything. I don't think so. But in case he does, I don't know if I wanna have that there. So, and I can fly it with that not being sealed. So I might hold off on that until after it's flying. I'm gonna let this cure. Then I'm gonna go upstairs there and put that top strip in place, get that, it's all been cleat out and held in place, but I need to get it permanently affixed. And then basically rivet in the Skylight pieces, and then I think I'm almost done with this. So we're getting there. The most scary part, gluing this strip and doing that fillet and stuff, so far, so good. Here's a mod that most people are never gonna notice. When the windshield, where it meets the glare shield, it's not a perfect fit. There were some gaps, maybe as much as, I don't know, 3/32 of an inch at places. And when the glue went in there, it kind of squished down, and it kind of extruded out into the cabin area here. Now it's way back in this crevice back there, and you really got to look to see it. But if you looked, you'd notice it. I got some of this neoprene, 7mm, so a little bit bigger than a 1/4 inch. Foam rubber, and I just wedged it perfectly in there all the way around, kind of like a piping, and it just trims out that joint all the way around. It's just nice and even and trimmed out. What I'm doing here, I had a helper come by and help me put the screws and nuts in the strips at the wing roots. I couldn't reach the screw heads and the nuts at the same time. So I had a local friend here at the air park stop by, help me get all those screws put in. I'm doing those M3 screws with lock nuts here, again, in kind of keeping with the theme of being able to remove some of these parts more easily later if I need to change the windshield or even pull the wings off. That was quite painless. I'm actually glad I decided to do that instead of rivets, because now this strip is removable. If I ever have to take the wing off, taking the wing off isn't so much of a deal because it'll just kind of slide out from the Skylight piece, but going back on, trying to get it perfectly aligned in that channel could be challenging, and if I need to, I can just remove that whole assembly with screws. And obviously for changing the windshield, that was required up there at the front. So now I did rivet these. You can see, I don't know if you can see, but these, the ribs, left, center, and right ribs, those strips are riveted. I didn't want to go through the hassle of drilling all the way through and using nuts there. If I have to change the Skylight, it's just a matter of drilling out those rivets there, and then I am going to use rivets across the back. So I'm not fully doing screws. The screws are primarily for the windshield, and a little bit of benefit on these pieces here. But check this out. This is the first chance I'm getting to see with the tinted Skylight and all the black pieces, it looks really nice. If we come inside, we can see how well it looks. And then you can see where all my screws are, and nuts, I mean. Nice clean look. I used all black coated hardware, just in keeping with making it look nice. So there we go. What's remaining is, if we come back up top, that strip right there, I got to attach that, and then I have to rivet this in place. That's the last two things remaining. For that, what I want to do is I'm going to drop a little bit of RTV in between the windshield and the skylight, because there's a slight gap there. The plans don't call for it, but I'm going to do it anyway. I've got the strip prepared and ready. I've got the VHB tape on it, ready to go. So it's just a matter of laying it down and going for it. Got to be a little careful, I guess, because once this VHB tape sticks, it's kind of permanent, or at least it wouldn't be easy to get off. Okay, change of plans. I'm not going to use VHB tape across here. I'm going to use the Sikaflex polyurethane. I'm just going to put one little bead there, and then one in between, that little gap in between the two, and then set it down. It's just going to be easier for me trying to get this all in place without trying to get the VHB tape. And then, I don't know, for reasons that I feel better about, I'll stick with the Sikaflex 295 for this. I've got my polyurethane laid down, the strip is on, cleat out in place, letting it cure. I didn't get a camera shot up here of this particular step. Quite frankly, well, two reasons. It was kind of hard to get something up to look down at this without rigging up something. And number two, I just didn't want any distractions on this. Anytime I'm doing this gluing stuff, I just get a little anxious. Anyways, I laid a nice thick bead at the joint between the skylight and the windshield, and then another bead in front where the VHB tape would normally go. And I've got it all just sitting here cleat-coat in place. I'll run with my screws and nuts tomorrow after this is cured. Remember, I'm running screws all the way through with nuts on the underside of the tube, except for 3 locations at the ribs. Here, center rib, and that rib. I am gonna do the rivets. I didn't want to be drilling through that. I felt like I wasn't gonna get a proper attachment of this assembly to the ribs by doing it that way. It really needs to be held with rivets. So I will have 3 rivets. If I ever have to change the windshield, 3 rivets have to come out. But that beats however many it would be, 60 more, I don't know. So I'm gonna let this cure and come in tomorrow. I'll have my helper come back out where I can put those nuts along the bottom side there while I'm up top with the nut driver or the screwdriver. But man, we are so close. Look at this. That last little piece is it. Man, loving it. Well, we got the strip screwed down with the M3 by 40 screws and lock nuts. And we'll take a look inside and see what it looks like. And that's what we're left with on the inside here. Just some black lock nuts with those screws. That holds it all together. Here's a look back at the skylight from inside. Very nice. Oh, and while we're here, this is a LED strip in a black extruded aluminum channel. It's one of those cob strips, so it's a nice continuous line, no hot spots. That, I haven't got the mounting sorted out yet, but it's basically gonna sit right up here against this. And that wires into this wire I have here waiting for it, which is controlled by this dimmer, this on-off switch plus dimmer here. That will also control the LED strip that is underneath this as well. Well, all said and done, windshield and skylight went together quite well. Really no big issues popped up in this whole process. Windshield fit very well, pre-trimmed from the factory. Only had to do a little bit of work on the right side. The fiberglass strip across the bottom here also fit very well. I mean, nothing really jumps out at me as anything that was a gotcha. Like, it all just fits. It's time. It's not difficult work. It's just time-consuming, tedious work. Next tasks are going to be the closeouts between the fuselage and the wing, and the cuffs, the little trim pieces there, as well as the closeouts back here, the ones that fit right there. I've got to get those. I kind of started playing around with that one over there. Where is it? Right there. It fits pretty well. I'm running the Aerosport pieces for that. And in fact, let's go look at that real quick. Even though I should probably show this in the next episode, I'll give you a little sneak peek at what I'm going to be doing. This piece right here, this nylon 3D printed piece, pretty much fits in place. I'm going to have to do a little bit of trimming away of some material, but by and large, it looks like it's going to be a pretty good fit. So that's all coming up in some of the next episodes. As usual, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.